It's time for the last TBR of 2023. Hi, I'm Colleen Delaney. On this channel, we talk about books and writing. In the description, I will have links to my newsletter and some of the books I've written. If you want to jump ahead just to listen to the books I'm going to read in December, I'll put a timestamp down. If you want to listen to a little bit of me chatting, hang around for a minute. Okay, so in my last video, I talked about how I was sick and my kids were sick, and I had no idea how sick we were all going to be, / kind of still are. You can see like my nose is very red and I'm not putting concealer on it because it hurts, and I'm just going to have to blow my nose in like 30 seconds and then it'll all come off. What ended up happening is on the day before Thanksgiving, I took my 6-year-old, my 6-year-olds are twins, to urgent care because she had spiked a fever of 104.7 in the middle of the night. And I talked to her pediatrician, who had just, I gave her some fever reducing medicine. She had been vomiting. She was like coughing so hard she was vomiting, just really, really sick. We basically stayed up all night. Took her to urgent care. It was the craziest urgent care appointment I think I've ever had because everyone was very terrified of what she might have. So she was tested for COVID, the flu, RSV, and whooping cough and strep. And it turned out that she had strep and an ear infection. And then she had another virus that we didn't know what it was. I later found out because one of her friends went to the hospital with the same virus, and it's called adenovirus, which gives you extremely high fevers and also makes your eyes turn bright red. So she did look kind of scary. So she was very sick. We got home from urgent care and I realized my throat hurt. Looked at my throat. I clearly had strep. So I went to urgent care, sat at urgent care for over 2 hours. It was a terrible day. We ended up having to cancel Thanksgiving because we were supposed to host. And obviously, I'm not going to make food for a bunch of people with an active case of strep. I was also diagnosed with bronchitis at that appointment. Okay. Next day is Thanksgiving. My daughter and I basically sleep all day. We feel awful. Day after, 2 more kids are sick. Take them to the doctor. One has pneumonia. And then the other one had the beginnings of the adenovirus, which is great. So we spent pretty much all of Thanksgiving break really sick, still getting over it. And then finally today, my oldest kid, who had been somehow remaining healthy, is sick and his eyes are looking weird. So I'm guessing he has the adenovirus, which is fun because it's so fun as a parent to have your children have fevers of over 104, which is just like terrifying. It's very scary, and you got to try and cool them off as quickly as possible. You're always worried kids could have a seizure if their fever gets that high. That is all to say, we did not have a great Thanksgiving break. I'm still quite sick. I'm done. My strep's done. I'm done with my round of antibiotics, so my throat feels fine. But I still got a bad cold. I think I might have the adenovirus, but I just didn't. I had a fever, but my fever only got to 101, which as a 40-year-old is very high, but it didn't get scary high. So yeah, there's a big long spiel about the health of my family. Who knew when you got into watching this book channel that you'd have so much health, weird sickness stuff that I would talk about during my intros. But that all being said, let's talk about books instead, because December is one of my favorite months of the year to read. So I'm really looking forward to this month. We're going to start with the one holiday book I have on my list. Most Decembers, I reread either Walking in a Witchy Wonderland or My True Love Gave to Me, which are 2 short story collections with Christmas stories in them. I don't really feel like rereading either of them this year. I might pick one story out of each of them and read them, but I'm not planning on rereading the entire thing. But I am planning on reading Winter Street by Ellen Hildebrand. This is the first book in her Winter Quartet, I think is what the series is called. And it's about a family on Nantucket, and they're all coming home for Christmas. And it sounds like everybody's got a lot of crap going on in their lives. We've got Patrick, who's a hedge fund manager. Kevin's a bartender. Ava's a school teacher. And Bart has recently joined the Marines. And it sounds like it's going to be fun and a contemporary fiction, how hers are, where there'll be some emotional stuff, but overall, kind of light. It came out in 2014. I was trying to figure out when they said he had joined the Marines. So it's not I'm getting old. It's not like the 2001 where people were going like straight into active duty situations. But I think it'll be fun to read. I really like Ellen Hildebrand. I've only read 2 of her books, but I've gotten like real into her. So I thought it'd be fun to read some winter stories by her. Next, I have When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka. I actually started this in the end of October, like the last week of October, and didn't finish it. I'm on page 48. It's really sad, which is part of the reason I stopped reading it. But I only have, I think I have like 100 pages, less than 100 pages left. So I was thinking I'll probably try and finish it before the year's out. It's narrated by a family who lives in San Francisco, and it's a mom and her 2 young children, and her husband has already been sent to an internment camp. This is during World War II, and they are of Japanese descent. And they're very American, though, as a family. Like, they're not recent immigrants. They've been living in their neighborhood forever. They're very established in their community. And the family, the way the book starts, have just been told that they also are going to have to go to internment camps. First, it was just the men, and now the mom and her children are going to have to go. And so the point I left off is they were on the train going from San Francisco to I think they're in the Utah desert, or maybe the Nevada desert. They're somewhere in that big portion of the United States in the middle of the West, but not the Midwest, where it's very deserty. But I think I'll probably finish reading this in December. It is such a quick read. Next, I have a book that I've always been like keeping it as like my break in case of emergency, in case I got in a bad book slump, but I just want to read it. And it's This God of Mine by Sophie Jordan. It's in the Rogue Files, but I can't remember which one. I think this might be number 5 in the Rogue Files. I've read number 7. It might be number 4. It's number 4 or number 5. I've already read number 7. I'm not reading these in order. And I think maybe I've read number 5 and this is number 4. I don't know. But this is about Lady Clara, who she's engaged to a man she really doesn't want to marry. So she lies and says she's pregnant, that she slept with someone, and is going to go live out her time in Scotland, I believe. Yes, in Scotland, as a disgraced woman, and she doesn't care. And she's very cool with being a spinster. And I don't know what her lie is going to be about the baby, probably that she lost it. But then she meets Laird Hunt McLaren, and he needs an heir, but he comes from a long line of men cursed to die before the birth of their firstborn. The Duke of Auchenbury, who we meet throughout the series, he needs someone to marry his disgraced sister, obviously, even though she doesn't want to get married. And he comes up to this guy and is like, hey, could you do me a favor and please marry my sister? And it'll go from there. And I just really love this series. I think it's a really fun series to jump in and out of. And I love Sophie Jordan, so I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a fun read in December. Next, I have 2 arcs. One is Hunt on Dark Waters by Katie Robert. I actually opened that on my Kindle last night after I finished my most recent Kindle read to at least get it started. I'm not sleeping very well because of this, so I was like, oh, I'll probably start this one. The only bad thing about when I read in the middle of the night when I'm super congested is that I don't always remember what I've just read. So I don't know if I'll actually do a lot of reading of that particular book since it is an arc and I do need to review it well. But I do want to read this one in December because I've had it for a while and I probably should have already reviewed it and I'm pretty sure it's out. So I feel kind of guilty about it. It's about a witch who falls through a portal and lands on a pirate ship, which sounds very fun. Next, I have Barbarian's Touch by Ruby Dixon, which is the newest re-release of the Ice Planet Barbarians. That's actually probably a better one for me to be reading in the middle of the night while I'm congested because those are kind of easy to keep track of the plot. I don't know what it's about. I just know it's another Ice Planet Barbarian book, and I think they're very fun. I think they're all solid 4-star reads. There's a couple that I think are better and a couple that I think are worse, but overall they're pretty solid 4-star reads. Now let's talk about Book of the Month. I am currently reading What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. I think it's how you say it. I'm on page 101. It is November 28th, and normally I'd be like, I'll totally finish this book in 3 days. But I don't feel good and my kids don't feel good and this is not on my Kindle. So I think there's a pretty good chance this will be on my December wrap up. I think I might finish this at December 1st or 2nd. I just think that might be where I am in my life. Maybe not. Maybe I am going to plan to let myself chill today because I didn't really sleep last night. So maybe I'll read 100 pages today and 100 pages tomorrow and 100 pages the day after. But I kind of doubt it. So most likely you'll get this on my December wrap up, not on my November wrap up. It's very much The Mummy, and I don't hate it because of that. I like The Mummy a lot. That's a very fun movie from the 90s, and I'm very much a 90s person. We follow Inez, and she is recently orphaned, but she's like older now. She's like 18-ish, 19-ish. And her parents died in Egypt, and her parents were always like looking for magical artifacts and stuff like that. She's from Buenos Aires and decides to sort of go against the wishes of everyone and just like board a boat to go to Egypt. Like when you think about that, that's like a really long way. And it's the 1800s or maybe early 1900s. It's the early 1900s. And when she gets there, her uncle, who is technically her guardian but lives in Egypt, is like, you have to go home. But he has a employee, you're not exactly sure what this man does, Mr. Hayes, who's very much Rick from The Mummy, that she hits it off with. And I'm enjoying it so far. It's pretty fun. It's YA, which is part of the reason I think I'm not flying through it as fast as I would be, because I'm not really a YA reader, but I'm still really liking it a lot. And I'm really liking the settings. The Buenos Aires setting from the beginning of the book and the Egypt setting, both fantastic. And then I still have Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. I bought this as like a replacement book of the month. I didn't want any of the books in maybe October, and I just haven't read it yet. I am excited to read this. Part of the setting is Antarctica, which I think might be really fun to read in the winter. It's freezing today. We have snow. It snowed a couple days ago. It's supposed to be like 45 tomorrow though, thank God, because I'm not ready for winter yet. But it's like, it was in the single digits today when I had to walk my two healthy kids to the bus, and I'm not ready for that. That's January. That is not December, so stop it. Good news. The next 10 days are all in the 40s, thankfully. But I think Antarctica might be a fun setting to read about in winter. I also went through the New York Times 100 best books of the year because my husband figured out a way for me to read it without paying for a New York Times subscription. Nothing against that. If I had more disposable income, I would subscribe to the New York Times. But I went through the entire list, and there were 2 books I was familiar with on it. This was one of them, and I was like, oh, that's on my TBR. And the other one was the Wilds Encyclopedia of Fairies, that book, which I got from the library, read one chapter, and then was like, I don't love it. And I know there was a long waiting list for it, so I returned it. But then all 98 other books that they recommended, I didn't know anything about. Now let's talk about December's picks for book of the month. So I'm not doing it live because I legit accidentally opened my book of the month app at like 3 a.m. last night when I couldn't sleep, and I don't remember what app I was trying to open. They had the picks out, and I was like, I could close the app, but like, I already can't sleep. I'm just going to look at them. And I was kind of blown away by them because I had not heard of like any of them. Sometimes when I do my book of the month picks, I get them all wrong, but like half the books are books that I did see while researching. I just didn't know they were being picked. None. So then I closed my app, whatever, went back to bed. And then this morning I reopened it, and I'm like, this is kind of crazy. And I was trying to pick what book I wanted, so I opened them all up on Goodreads. Zero of the December picks came out in December. Not one, which made me feel a little better because I was having a really hard time finding like December picks for book of the month. They didn't pick any December picks, so it doesn't matter. Before I give you the list, I did get one add-on right, The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose, and one of the picks I had is an add-on, The Second Chance Year by Melissa Weisner. Other notable add-ons they had was The Gentleman's Gambit by Evie Dunmore. That whole series has been picks or add-ons. Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher, which I did read a lot about that book. The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon, which I also saw that one and almost put that as a historical fiction pick, but then decided not to. I don't know why. The Other Mothers by Catherine Faulkner, and Alice, Sadie, Celine by Sarah Blakely Cartwright. Sorry, I am reading off a piece of paper because I can't unplug my computer. Here are the picks. A Winter in New York, which is a rom-com. I forgot to write down the author. I don't know why. There's the cover. The author's name will be on there. This came out in October, which is also kind of a weird thing when I was looking at all the Christmas romances. None of them come out in December, which makes sense because people read a lot of Christmas romance in October and November. You want to get the longest buying time available for these seasonal books. But so that makes sense that they picked a book that's been out for 2 months. The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson, which is a dark fantasy that's got like a nutcracker theme, and that came out in November. No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall, which is a thriller, and she's a repeat author, and I read What Lies in the Woods. This doesn't come out till the end of January, so it was not on my radar at all for December. The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan, which is the World War II historical that comes out in January, and Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang, which is a short story collection, which is also kind of an odd pick. And it came out in August. So 3 of these books were already out. I mean, the one that came out in November, The Kingdom of Sweets, came out on like November 28th, which I think is today. It is. I kind of get that one. You know, they had What the River Knows came out on October 31st, but was a November pick. So that one I kind of get. Kind of surprised I never came across that in my research. Whoops. But a book from October and a book from August kind of shocked me. Sometimes they do like the yearly look back, which is what they called Tomb Sweeping. But like, I haven't heard of that book. It's usually books that like were really popular, and maybe I've just been living under a rock. And if I went into any indie bookstore, it would be front and center. But I haven't been in an indie bookstore in a few months. Now let's talk about what I pick. I realized something, and that is that I should be picking more books each month. Follow me here. So I have so many credits because a lot of you lovely viewers use my link to sign up, and because I'm not affiliated with Book of the Month, they don't like pay me. They give me free credit. I was just realizing I've been like trying to buy like only 1 book a month. That doesn't make sense because I still have to pay my membership fee every month. So if I only buy 1 book, then I'm not using any of these credits. So I'm just paying regular. So what I picked this month. For my pick, I picked No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall. I really enjoyed What Lies in the Woods. And in this one, our main character has like secrets from her husband, and they go to live in her childhood home, which she hasn't told him this, but her parents were murdered there, and she was accused of their murder, and a lot of people still think she did it. So that sounded nice and creepy. What Lies in the Woods had a good dual timeline thriller going on, so I think this one will too. I bet we'll get a lot of stuff in the past, which I really like. Then I picked The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. It's a historical fiction mystery. It takes place in Maine in 1789, and we follow a midwife/healer who's also kind of like does autopsies. She keeps track of everything that happens in the town. Births, deaths, murders, all that. She does an autopsy of a man who was accused of rape a couple months earlier. And she's like, this man was murdered, but everybody else is like, this was an accident. And so she decides to investigate the murder on her own. I'm kind of hoping this book will scratch the itch I had that The Vaster Wilds did not, with like some early America thriller business, whereas that was just very depressing. And then lastly, I decided to grab Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. It's been on my TBR for a while. The sequel just came out, and it's, from the description, hard to describe. It's like journalism, dark academia, but also like a war between gods. So I am looking forward to that. I think it'll be fun. It's a YA. You know me, I don't read too much YA, and I am currently reading a YA, but this one was really, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff on Instagram that's made me want to read it, which is why I'm going to read it. That's why I picked it. So those are all the books I'm planning to read in December. I'm also probably going to be gifted some books for Christmas because I always am. We do like a Secret Santa, which is not secret on my side of the family because I am one of 5. So I have a lot of siblings and they have a lot of spouses. And so usually whoever picks me, I just give them a book list. And I'm like, I'd love some books off this. So most likely I'll get some books from that. My mom usually buys me a book, and I usually get myself a couple books. So by the second half, the last week of December, I'll probably be reading some stuff that's not on this list, but you'll hear about it in the wrap up too. Are you someone who really likes to read like holiday themed books? I'm just not really. I read one November that I loved, and I've got one planned for December, but I'm not someone who likes to read, like 20 Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, winter solstice themed romances in the month of December. But if you are one of those people and you have a favorite, please post it in the comments for all of us to see. What book, if you're not a holiday reader, are you most excited to read in December? Do you have something on your TBR you just can't wait to get to? Are you super excited for something that Book of the Month came out with? I've also gotten like way more interested in Aardvark books. Their clues are really cool. They do like a little bit lesser known publishers. And sometimes some of the books that I think Book of the Month is going to pick, Aardvark ends up picking. So I'm hoping at some point in the next year, a second book subscription might be in my budget. We'll see. Maybe if I get monetized on YouTube, I can get a second book subscription. That would be fun. If you made it this far and you don't want to write words, give me a snowflake emoji. Even though I am just not really a winter person, I like it if it starts snowing on December 21st. That's one of my kids' birthdays, the winter solstice, and then stops snowing at like January 10th. But I don't live in that sort of climate. I live somewhere where 50% of the time we get snow in April. Okay, I feel like this was a very silly TBR, so now I'm going to close it out by saying I hope you were in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book, and I'll see you soon.